Hello again, beautiful people. How are you doing? How are you guys a-doing? A-do. So, I thought today I would rant about some Marxist garbage and kill some monster mans. I think that's a good use of both of our time. And I could be wrong about that. You might have better things to do. I probably should have better things to do with my life at this age, but, here we are. So let's stop making excuses, and let's talk about some delicious elements of Marxism. So, I don't know if you guys are aware or not, but there's a few social constructs I never hear Marxists talk about, and power dynamics that they seem to ignore, that I figured I would address here, since we're all such good little Marxists, right? We're all just working towards that beautiful praxis, and, the more perfect society where, for instance, age is just a number, it's just a social construct, it's not going to hold us back, just like all the other good Marxists, where speciesism isn't allowed anymore. So let's talk about some decent social constructs that Marxists don't talk about. And one of them, I think, is actually the language of race, for instance. So I don't know if you guys are aware or not, but the N-word is actually a social construct, and I don't know how many people have really thought about that. But it's a perfect power play dynamic, and something we really need to start bridging the gap. If we're going to move towards the praxis and a perfect society, it's really time for us to destigmatize the use of the N-word, break down this barrier, And a lot of you people might say, well, Sneed, you probably just want to say the N-word because you're an edgy boy and just be a degenerate, right? And part of that is true. I will not deny that, for instance, just like how most Marxists just want to molest children, I in fact just want to say the N-word, which is why I'm trying to socially deconstruct the N-word, but we're not going to examine that. So I guess we might as well talk about what is a social construct. So a social construct is just as it sounds. It's a structure that doesn't exist organically, it's man-made. It's basically something society has put on people to try and force them to ensconce from their natural desires, right? We're trying to avoid dipping into our base carnal, well, we're actually trying to dip into our base carnal nature, my bad. But we're actually trying to avoid not dipping into our base carnal nature and embracing that animalistic demon inside of us that just does horrible things. Uh-oh, ventures, uh-oh, I gotta go complete this and then head back to town. But anyways, the ventures are coming in. But anyways, so it's got a power dynamic to it that really, really hampers not only just free speech, but human creativity. And I think in the praxis, it's almost assuredly that things like the N-word will not exist, right? I mean, come on. So if we're going to remove the power from the N-word, we need to start by normalizing its use, Just like with pedophilia, just like with homosexual relationships, we really need to normalize the N-word to get it to be socially acceptable, and just, we have to build our society around being more caring and inclusive of all people, including racists. So we need to start with the N-word. I think as far as society is concerned, it's a more pressing issue as far as power dynamics and the, oppression Olympics. It's a more pressing issue than I think anything else, personally. And I would love to see us socially deconstruct the N-word and get to a point where we can really say that, we've grown as a society and we've overcome race relations and critical race theory. For instance, if we exist in a world where being white, as in critical race theory, is just so powerfully offensive to the rest of the world, and just because Caucasian skin halo effect is that much more pretty than every other race, that we have natural, unavoidable oppression just by existing, then it's also time for us to admit that through ignoring obvious realities, like the fact that the N-word is in fact a social construct, that we're losing out on making the world a better place, moving towards that praxis. And so another social construct we need to talk about is just age. Me, like any other good communist, clearly, someone who really, really believes in Marxist teachings, someone who certainly doesn't rail on communists every single day. I also believe that minor addicted people or maps or pedos or, degenerate homos, whatever you want to call them, you might as well call them schoolroom teachers, preachers, anyone that basically associates themselves with the rainbow flag at this point. We'll just call them fag child molesters. Anyone like that, for instance, they're clearly right when they say that age is in fact just a social construct, really. It's an unavoidable truth. Like, animals don't know about what age is. That's a characteristic we as human beings assign to relationships, and it innately comes with a power dynamic between the adults and children. And we really need to break that barrier down so that we can continue to have, illicit relationships. There was this movie that released that everyone's talking about. I haven't seen it yet because I don't watch Western movies, even if they're potentially probably fairly good. But, I might make an exception for this one movie just because everyone's talking about it. And generally it makes leftoid seeds. So anything that makes leftoid seeds, I might make an exception normally when I wouldn't, just because, in the culture that we live in, it's kind of unavoidable not to fall into these pitfalls and be able to use these things against your opponents. But yeah, given the fact that, like all good communists, we basically are working towards, normalizing the pedophilia and the Hollywood-style relationships between children and adults that we crave and we wish, like all good Marxists, to fully accomplish in this world. We need to recognize that age is in fact a social construct, and there is no reason that a man and a child shouldn't be able to get married, or a woman and a child, or someone who identifies as a woman and a child, which is probably going to be the case most of the time in this situation. Let's be real here. Oh, I might actually fail this. A minute and a half? Oh, had to think about the video game for a second there. Alright. Yeah, anyways, so if we're going to fix the power dynamics between adults and children, they need to be equal on a relationship-based level. We need to remove the social construct that, race or that age is. Because clearly the minor people are right. Like, if you accept critical theory, if you accept Marxism, if you accept critical race theory, if you accept LGBT plus people are human beings, then you also have to accept that, the deconstruction of relationships and marriage is also a deconstruction of age. And speaking about further things we need to deconstruct, not just that, but we have to deconstruct race, for instance, too, because there are natural differences between the races, right? It's not just the melanin in their skin. There's, performance differences at the extremes, involving intelligence, involving physical aptitude. There's a whole host of differences between all of the races, and they're all quite varied. Just like the colors on a rainbow almost. It's all so varied and so beautiful and diverse, really, how different they all are. Clearly, just like how modern leftist predicts and how social programming tells us. And we're also so sure that white men are in fact just the absolute devils, and by far the most evil, because they're trying to protect, like with this recent movie, they're trying to protect children from the Marxists, and really they're just coming in between the Marxists. They're coming in between the true love of these Marxist adults and these children. And I, for one, just cannot stand it. We really need to stand up to people like these bullies that are trying to keep the kids out of the dirty grips of, Steven Spielberg or whatever. I don't even know if he's one of them, but I have to assume so, because his last name is Berg. And that's my justification. And just like any other Marxist, I am also extremely anti-Semitic. I don't know if you've read Karl Marx. He wrote a book called The Jewish Question, which was basically just a precursor to Mein Kampf. Like, it's about as Mein Kampf as you can get without just being Mein Kampf. So highly suggest you read it if you haven't. It's quite amazing, really. It's eye-opening, how anti-Semitic Marx was. And it has to be true because, Marx is the modern father of all American political thought. And America's in such an amazing state because we've embraced Marxism, we've embraced all this cultural diversity, we've embraced all of this rainbow stuff. So, given how wildly successful America is, it's just further proof that socialism and communism and all of these isms is just clearly the correct way. That the age of white men is over, and the America's going to be better for it in the end. Like, I mean, just because our infrastructure is falling apart, the IQ is dropping by double digits every decade. Who cares? Like, what's important is that we have women in the workforce, and that we don't have white men in college. And those are values that I want to stand behind. My God. And so, yeah. I for one, stand with the Marxists as far as anti-Semitic. I, of course, am a tiny hat person, so I intimately know about the tiny hat conspiracies, the nepotism associated with any and all people of the Semitic races, the Ashkenazis and alike. I've personally experienced the benefits of the nepotism of the tiny hats, and I can tell you for a fact it does exist. It do be like that. Blat blat. So maybe that's another video entirely, about Jewish nepotism. I don't believe there's some worldwide Jewish conspiracy, but I do believe that, the Khazar look after the Khazar, we'll say. Because I've experienced just that. And yeah. So I'm glad that you guys, being fellow Marxists with me, being, fellow maps, all embracing all sorts of degeneracy, are so proud of the American system and where we've come. And, I for one stand against that movie that's trying to prevent children from being abducted and, it's just QAnon conspiracy, clearly. Like, I don't know about the author. I don't know what an ad hominem is. I'm not interested in insulting a person, an ad homonym, one could say. I'm not interested in insulting a person instead of their argument or their work or anything. But I just know that if I disagree with someone about politics, then, whatever they're doing can't possibly be right. And everything else doesn't matter. And certainly box office numbers don't matter. The only thing that matters, really, is the fact that the only way we'll get to a, praxis or a certain better future is by embracing Marxist tenets like pedophilia, like homosexuality, like feminism, all of the good things that come together. And I hope you guys are ready to embrace all of that. And it's almost like this fate says, it's a little bit of a problem, but the solution will be artificial intelligence, clearly. Once Google has its woke AI overlord reigning over us all, controlling what we can and can't do and think, we'll all be moving quickly towards a perfection that we could never even imagine. It's beautiful. When I close my eyes, I can just imagine all of these, red tube socialists, all of them with their underage brides and bridees and bridezeds and their zirs, and, a good old Christian church getting married. And that's the future we chose here in America. And, consequences be damned. Love is love, even if it's between some sort of Marxist degenerate and a child, which is usually what it is. But yeah, I think I've said enough about this. This would be a bit of a problem, one could say. And I am not a problematic person. I am one of the good whites, right? You're not going to loot my store if I put up a BLM flag. You're not going to burn down my church if I write in the sign, XYZ is welcome here. You're not going to have a rainbow flag and welcome under my church's banner. I can't believe anyone goes to church even anymore in this fucking country, though. Like, my God, how cucked do you have to be? Like, nothing against, the guy making the child video or whatever. From what I understand, he's, super religious. Again, I don't know anything about him. I don't really care. That's not my venue or my thing I'm going to explore. But I will say that the degeneracy just surrounding it is absolutely spectacular. And I just can't help but, look at, the way these woke corporations reviewed cuties and the way they're reviewing this movie, and just notice a bit of a problem, one could say. A bit of a problem. But yeah, I'm not problematic, so I'm not gonna notice things. Noticing things is racist. And we're not racist here, right? Blah, 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 blah. Ayo, let me scrap this bat here. Ayo, that thing's got Nikes on. But yeah. And with that, I'm gonna let you guys go. Before I get another video banned by the YouTubes. For some reason, YouTube doesn't like me. Not sure why I'm such a good progressive socialist.